All right, Angela, thanks for your time today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you.
Yeah, we have Angela Green Urbaczewski. Nailed it?
You did. You nailed it.
All right.
As I said, I really love that guy.
Yeah, that is to marry into that name is a bold strategy. You know what? Not a lot of Urbaczewskis out there, so you probably show up on Google really.
I am really easy to find.
Yes.
Yeah, and my husband especially is easy to find.
Matt
yes.
Moore. There's like 10 professional athletes named Matt Moore. You can't find if you just search. That's why
you just hope you'll get mixed up.
Yeah, sure. That's why I put Matthew Lee Moore across everything. It's ridiculous but if you search that, I actually show up. So
okay,
that's the idea behind it, anyways. RevOppAI, helping businesses scale with AI and automation. Mm-hmm. Why don't you give us your elevator pitch for what you guys do?
Yeah, it's really that. We go into companies that are at an inflection point. They're either growing through acquisition, they're bolting two companies together, they're ready to move to new markets or new product lines. They are getting to the point where that founder and the team that first built things really needs replicable processes. And we look at all of everything revenue generating. So all of their sales, marketing, customer experience, revenue efforts, and quickly identify where we can add AI and automation to their processes to really drive revenue. So looking for those quick wins first, and then do all the engagement with the team to really drive adoption of the bigger lifts that are going to provide results long-term for them.
Love it. Awesome. Yeah, I'm a big systems guy, so I love talking about this stuff. So I want to dig into your business and what you guys do a little bit, but I also want to understand you and how you got here and how you got to start this business. Sure. So grew up in Iowa, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And tell me about growing up. What was that like for you?
Oh, well, I grew up in Des Moines, so I was not on a farm until I was in high school, except for like the living history farm.
So you're from Iowa, but you're kind of a city girl?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you call it, and Des Moines is an awesome city. I do business there now, actually. I'm active in the chamber there as well as here in Denver. And it's like a 10 or 15 minute drive to everything. But I'm the middle of three kids, grew up with a band director dad. So like say raising my kids was like living in a musical. Raising me was like living at a concert, probably. So we, lots of we went to football games to see the halftime show.
That's how it is in my hometown too, because the team's not very good.
Oh, well, I couldn't tell you.
Really
I mean, I really just knew how the band was doing with how clean its marching was.
My brother was in a marching band. He was like one of the not captains. What's it called? I don't know. Director.
The drum major.
Drum major.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So did he have the thing? That's very Iowa too.
He was very into that. So
I
grew up going. I'm right there with you.
Great place to grow up. I've lived all over the country, have done work East Coast to West Coast, but everywhere I end up, I mean, I love Denver. I've been here almost 20 years, raised my kids in Highlands Ranch and now live out in Southeast Aurora. But every place I go, I find my people, Midwest people are just down to earth, unpretentious, mean what they say and do what they say they will do. And so love that.
I love that. So graduated high school, and then what after high school?
Went to college in Kirksville, Missouri, pretty small town. Truman State University. Started my career as a television reporter in a market that was so small. I shot my own stuff. So I would put, in the days of big cameras and actual tape to tape editing, I would put the camera in the field and talk to it. And I did a lot of stories on either farmers, combines, or meth labs.
And those are the three, the trifecta for you, huh?
Exactly.
That's great. Well, you have great on-camera personality. So your presence is I can totally see you being a reporter.
It was a fun and short career. And everybody in town, the work is done at the end of the day. You're learning something every day. And that's really, that learning something every day is the thread that has continued through my career.
Nice. So then what after that? Because you didn't start RevOpp until 2023. So
right.
There's a gap. Tell me about what you did there and what skills you picked up that kind of led you to start this business.
With my reporting career, moved to Virginia and was a television reporter there, fell in love with a newspaper reporter, and we decided we could not live on those schedules and incomes together and have a family. So did something I thought I'd never do. I got into sales in retirement living and opened several retirement communities, first in Virginia, and then that was what brought me here to Denver in 2005. And after that, really found that I loved that, building the community before the community, sort of creating the community among the residents and staff and building the brand, and loved the development and financing part of it. So worked in retirement living across the country, opening communities and rebranding them. Lived in Denver all that time, but for 23 years, and was VP of Sales and Marketing for both Bethesda Senior Living, which we grew from 45 to 65 million when I was there in annual revenue, and then Christian Living Community. So I'd consulted for previously and then went back to, and we grew really fast through a lot of some acquisition, but mostly management. And so we're bolting a lot of systems together. So it took both of those companies through a brand and digital transformation that really grew occupancy and revenue. And then
starting to see the puzzle pieces.
Yeah. So I love growing people, and I was really passionate about our mission in senior living, and was talking to one of my senior living colleagues this morning, so still am. But really also learned I love to pull all those teams together, to pull the sales and marketing team and the communications and brand and messaging teams, and really achieve our goals. And so in 2023, went to the YMCA of Metro Denver, decided I was like ready to move upstream in the wellness world, into a really proactive wellness space. And they were doing a ton of rebuilding after the pandemic in their membership. So pulled their donor and member and childcare family and senior health insurance reimbursement customer experiences all together. And as I was doing that transformation, that was when I saw AI is going to change how all of this works. Yeah. It's going to change me going and like begging to get improvements on the product roadmap with my software companies, or get APIs built out and saying, can we pilot with you? How about we speak at a conference together? Like negotiating all that. I'd been doing that for years. It was also going to change the role of every single person in those internal marketing teams and sales teams that we'd built and trained them to use the tools. You know, they were going to have a lot more ability to drive that tool change in their hands. So I decided it was time to go back to school and like figure out what this change was going to look like. And the other thing was I saw it was going to completely change marketing, right? We see today in July of 2024, Bing has 20% of North American traffic for search. And that was, Google dominated that for years. Yeah. Right. And they've grown 1 or 2% a month over the last several months because people are changing their behavior from being on a search engine to using ChatGPT or
don't
using Claude or Gemini.
Anymore. Just ask OpenAI.
I can't say I don't.
I still use it, but
there are some tools I like. That journalist in me, like, if Mama says she loves you, you check it out. So I don't always love how LLMs don't source things, but they've gotten better about that. So anyway, that going back to
my use cases, it usually works great. For what I'm trying to do. Hey, oh man, I got these ingredients. I want to make ice cream with my kids. I need a quick recipe, and I don't want to have to cook. So give me a chocolate ice cream no cook recipe, and it's just right there. And that double it for me.
That was my first favorite use, because you're not scrolling through all those endless ads.
Yeah.
Ugh, in the yummy recipe.
I don't want to read the story about your grandma and her, how she came up with this recipe. I just need the recipe and the ingredient list. Yeah.
Yes. Language learning models are changing the way we do things. For sure. Absolutely.
Grocery shopping. Hey, here's the meals we're making. Build me a grocery list.
And the way that we're headed, I think, to have edge computing on our phones in a very short period of time. So I went back to school, finished my AI post-grad for business leaders. I'm still not a developer. I know just enough R and SQL and HTML to be very dangerous. And to go ask...
to get yourself into trouble.
Yeah, to go ask Gemini or ChatGPT to fix it for me. But I really took away the principles for that, of really driving that change management in an effective way with teams. And that's how RevOppAI was born.
That's great. Awesome. And so it's not just you, right? You have a business partner.
I do. Yeah. The guy with the bad last name is my business partner. So Andrew has his PhD in MIS. He, for a long time, ran the analytics department at
what a good partner.
DU. And so still teaches there. He's full-time faculty, but he is an awesome partner when we get into the really meaty data analytics work or data estating or engineering, architecture and engineering of the systems. And then we've got a variety, like a lot of small companies, a variety of great contractors that we work with, both here in Denver, across the West and the Midwest. And then for really tight budgets, we have great offshore partners as well.
So is this the first business you've started from the ground up?
It is. Okay. Yeah. And I never thought I would start a business. So it's been a really fun adventure to be a female in a technical space who didn't grow up with this dream of being a founder, you know. So it's been a lot of fun.
It sounds like you just saw the writing on the wall. You saw opportunity in the market and you just went for it.
And I really recognized I was just talking with a professor at CU Denver today, and she said, well, doesn't this change management sit with like CIOs and companies? And I really saw this change management. There's so much hesitation. There's so much fear in companies around compliance and data security. You absolutely need those strong tech people at the table, but you need someone who's coming at that change management, who knows how to engage teams, who knows how to get them on board with the change management process, who's going to look at who's issuing the most tickets in your system and get that person on your AI council in your business, and who can really drive the training and change management, as well as prioritizing the use cases and what we're going to do first for what's going to drive business for the company. You know, how do we drive revenue
like
first?
you said, those easy wins.
Right.
Yeah. Where are our biggest inefficiencies that we can take advantage of, use AI to take advantage of, and take them from the weakest link to the strongest link.
Yep. Yeah. And that repetitive activity, the efficiency stuff, is the very first stuff we look at in companies. And so probably anybody listening to this can think of 5 things today that are on that, if we just didn't have to do this over and over again list. That's where AI can make a big difference quickly.
Yeah. AI and automation, man. I like it. I think for me, and the way that I do business, my hang up is I want it to feel like a personal touch.
Absolutely.
And so like, how do I incorporate automations and AI into my business without losing that personal touch and making sure that they know that I still care about their business. I care about their success. I want them to know that I'm checking in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do I use these tools behind the scenes that just allow me to do that more efficiently and better and in a timelier manner? You know?
That's a lot of what we work on. So have you figured out ways to do it yourself?
No.
Well,
I'm constantly thinking about it and tinkering with things and trying things, and then I end up coming back because our our services are so custom for each client needs a different video and they have different needs. And so it's like, we don't sell widgets. You know what I mean? Our service isn't rinse and repeat.
Right.
Each client's need is different and it takes a different approach. And I have to have a discovery call with them where I listen to their problems, what pain points they have in their business. What are we trying to solve? How can we use video and photo content to solve those business problems? and come up with solutions, unique and creative solutions for them. And then we have to go and create that content to solve those solutions. So everyone is different, right? So it's like, it's hard for me to find ways to use automation, especially, but even AI. So like, I do use things like AI on our Zoom calls. It records our calls and summarizes it. And then I take those and it's usually like a follow-up email. Hey, here's notes from our call last week. We talked about this. You're going to provide these 3 things. I'm going to send you these 3 things. I just wanted to make sure that, those things were in the works. So I use it. So I guess I have, things like that.
Well, and can we use that sort of sequence that you just talked about as a scenario? Because we just published a much more extensive case study on working through an entire customer journey with one of our clients. So, if you can't sleep some night, it's an academic article, so I'll send it to you.
Perfect.
But
my wife is a research professor.
Oh, well, I mean,
I can't read those at all. But
okay.
Maybe she can read it to me.
Well, I mean, just have AI summarize it for you.
There you go. Yeah.
It'll take you 5 minutes. So, I think what you talked about is not that different than our initial discovery process, even though it's a much bigger picture and we're talking about tech stack and things. But we don't suggest that customers use AI to write content. So the content that you create is that's the secret sauce. That's what needs to remain original, right? So it's looking at your work process. What's your business process? And you gave a great example. I use Fireflies for AI note taking because it summarizes your action items and it sends me a weekly summary and it integrates with HubSpot, which is awesome because that's the CRM that I use. But you're thinking about exactly the right things. How do we use AI then to build out those steps in your process? So what we do is go in and map the business process. So you are having the meeting, you're sending a follow-up email. How do we shorten that step? Then you're scheduling. How do we shorten that step for you? Then once you shoot that great content, how do you use AI to version it for the different social channels, to get it out on those channels, to maybe do an initial draft? Maybe you draft the post, but you use AI to add the emojis and hashtags that are getting high traffic, so things, small steps like that. So you're right, it doesn't completely take away a full-time position in very many situations, unless those roles are doing super, super repetitive work.
Right.
If you're hand keying payments
And very
every
high
day.
volume.
Right, exactly. But even for mid-sized volume businesses, it really can make a huge difference. And on the video side, I'd love to hear what you're finding. I'm using Descript because it will immediately edit out my ums and ahs, and I have a few of those. And
we embrace the ums and ahs.
Okay, all right, well, that's cool too. And it also will identify sort of some of those key snippets that are really the hot, quotable items that you can break down into smaller content. And then it will help you break those down fast. And because even though I edited tape-to-tape video early in my career, that's not something I do every day, right? So I think AI expands. None of us want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. But if there's something that a team does 10 or 20% of the time and it's not their key skill set, how do we give them a tool that makes that easier? So Descript is kind of a good example of that. That will never replace the professionalism of the kinds of things you guys do. It gives you sort of like a 70 or 80% as good product, right? It's great. The AI tools, though, I think are great for training development. If you're updating your training materials for a team and you can use something like Synesthesia to change the regulatory content that's just been updated without having to re-record the whole thing. That's a great efficiency win.
Yeah, that's big. That's good. I like that. All right. So when you say, maybe we could take one little step back because I want to clarify. When you say AI, I think a lot of things come into people's mind.
It does.
And it's probably a million different things. If 100 people are watching this, they're probably all thinking something different, right? So maybe you can explain what you mean by AI when you say AI.
Yeah, great question. And I will preface it by saying when we go into an organization and we end up giving them recommendations, if we're giving 10 recommendations, often 6 of them are just standard automation. So I'll talk about the difference between those two as well. So I think of artificial intelligence as a pretty big umbrella. And within that is what you hear called generative AI, machine learning. I'll talk about what each of those means a little bit. And then I'll talk a little bit about the technology as well. So the idea, and artificial intelligence has been around, it really grew out of World War II research. You think about all the coding and message decoding work that was done during World War II. Those were early mechanical machines that were doing artificial intelligence. They were doing calculations and doing sort of that, if this, then that, more linear, choose your own adventure, what today we think about as automation. If A happens, then do B. Yeah. They were doing that then. And so really the artificial intelligence and machine learning movement started in the 1960s out of that, very soon after computing became available. What's really changed today is that compute is so much more accessible. So we're finally at that point where we have big enough bytes of compute to process these really complex processes. So underneath, it's still programming, but it's teaching itself, right? So for those of us who are old enough to remember, like the choose your own adventure, that's really when AI is being trained, what it's doing is it's gathering information, and based on all the information that it has, it's gathering together what the possible next steps are, and it's testing those and figuring out which ones work best. And that's why training of models is so important. And you're seeing now a lot of AI companies are going back to more skilled trainers to really fine tune their models. The thing I really like to talk about with people when we talk about artificial intelligence is I think what we're all most familiar with are language learning models. So things like ChatGPT. So you put words in, it goes into the black box. In the black box, it turns those words into what's called vectors, which if any of us remember from like early math, like the binary number system is a bunch of zeros and ones. And then it tries to match those vectors and it turns it back into words. And that's where you get the output. And those prompts you give are really, really important. And today, if you put video or code or any kind of images into ChatGPT, it actually goes through an extra step, right? So it's not going video to video, it's going video to words, to vectors, into the black box to come up with solution, to vectors, to words, to video, which that then I think helps us understand why we get some hallucinations. Now you've got some other great artificial intelligence technology that is not that multimodal, where it does all those things. But Tesla, for example, now is working on, rather than saying with words, when you see a red sign with white letters, stop, it's showing the machine learning video that shows again and again cars stopping, and then those machines will act off that video, so they're not having to translate so much, and that requires less compute. It also
quicker response.
Yep, exactly. It reduces latency and provides for a faster response.
Reduces latency. That's a fancy word for saying.
You don't have to wait
Faster.
so long.
It's quicker.
Exactly.
That's great. Okay. I think that was a good explanation. And then the difference between AI and automation.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. So I think of this in a really mathematical way. So if you think of A plus B plus C, or if A, then B, then C, that linear is what automation is. And automation can often be less compute intensive, more visible, like to the team, right? If I go into a team that really wants to be able to see what's happening, and it's a pretty obvious process and a linear process, that's where we use automation. There's no reason to add compute, to add less
where
quickness.
Repetitive things are happening where you're just repeating the same thing over and over again. It's like, let's just find ways to automate that. Where a physical person doesn't have to go in and click that button, or, click send or whatever it is, enter that number. Let's just automate that and save all that time. And then they can focus on doing the actual skill that they have.
Right. Being creative or being innovative or being face-to-face with customers. And AI is playing a role in automation builds now in not having to be a programmer to build that stuff, right? So that's a lot of where we help organizations
feed off of each other, for sure.
implement it. Is you can use it for the build, but then you've got a visible process of automation that you can see day to day.
So talk to me a little bit. We've talked about small, medium-sized businesses. What is your perfect client avatar? Give me some examples of your customers that you really enjoy working with and helping?
Great question. So I found that I really have enjoyed, from a sort of cognitive avatar perspective, someone who's innovative, who recognizes the opportunity of this moment. They really see we can leap ahead if we can take just a little bit of risk.
So then there's not you're not trying to convince them. They're already kind of bought in. If they're innovative.
I mean, I've had both.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got both, but I think it's really fun to work with those people.
You're looking for innovative leaders because they're more receptive to what you guys offer.
Right. And as far as sort of sectors and size of businesses, typically we're working with companies that they're getting to a point of scale where they need the automation and AI. So they're typically at $1 million to 25 million in annual revenue. I come from a long history of working in a HIPAA compliant space. So I work with a lot of med spas. I have an autism behavioral practice. Love to work with those mission driven customer service organizations.
Are you doing, any nonprofit?
I have done a lot of nonprofit. I don't have nonprofit clients right now, but about half my career has been either consulting for or working with nonprofits. So love to work with nonprofits. A lot of nonprofits use Salesforce, and I've got a lot of experience with that. So that's always fun to get into that because it's really complex. And then I also love to work with construction, specialty construction, trades, home services, and B2B professional services.
Those types of businesses are sort of tech averse a lot of times.
I kind of look at it like they know what they're good at and they want to be able to do more of that. And they don't want to be in the middle of this other stuff.
Yeah, but we don't want to necessarily pile over spreadsheets,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then really have done a lot of deep work in B2B outreach and outbound. So love to work with professional services, B2B partners who are really trying to figure out. A lot of those that I've worked with have really been in a process of going from a really broad market to really niching down. Because when you really want to make the best use of your marketing spend, the best and fastest way to do that is to do great data analysis and customer segmentation, and then to go right after that lookalike audience. That's really how you drive down your cost per acquisition and lifetime value of your customer goes up.
So marketing, helping people with their marketing is a big part of what you guys are offering?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the AI implementation strategy, but we actually have two lines of business. So we'll go in and do just AI implementation strategy for an organization, really work them through that change management, or we will do fractional chief marketing officer work, and that's where we really help them build their internal talent, scale their internal systems to be able to bring their existing staff along, but they maybe are too small to have a full-time person like me who's got 26 years of experience and all the strategic background. So we provide that strategic support, help them build out their vendors as well as their internal team. And usually we're working with those clients for anywhere between 18 to 24 months, and then they've grown enough. Either their systems are built out enough they can have a more junior person, or we've grown them enough that they can bring on a full-time CMO.
Nice. And so you kind of ultimately want to work yourself out of a job.
Yeah, isn't that strange?
Yeah,
I love the change management though.
Yeah.
And I recognize that about myself. Like if work starts to feel like Groundhog's Day, I'm looking for the next challenge. Yeah.
Moving on, huh? So you mentioned the autism therapy practice. I read that you are doing something really cool with them. Can you talk about that? And then also, I just want to hear like some very like practical things that you've done. Like give me some stories.
Yeah.
Maybe start with that one and then maybe give me another one of your favorites how you've actually helped these businesses implementing like very specific things that you've done for them.
So they're a pretty new client. So we're early in our journey together. But one of the things we recognized really quickly was they are serving 70% Spanish speaking families.
Okay.
And while their therapy is delivered in English, so kids, and they work with a lot of preschool kids and toddlers, sort of those early ages, 1 to 6 years old. And those kids can take advantage of as much as 20 to 25 hours of therapy a week. So it really becomes like their one-on-one therapy preschool experience to really prepare them to be successful later in life. So especially if you're coming from a non-English speaking household, really important school readiness happens there. But part of that is parent education. And so really wanted to make that parent education more accessible and early in the process. When we're taking families through assessment.
So the family speaks Spanish and the teacher speaks English.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And we do have some therapists that speak Spanish as a second language and have very intentionally, that team has had on its front end, its intake coordinator and some of its scheduling staff are multilingual. And they've been very intentional about that, knowing that that they had a lot of Spanish speaking customers, but their website isn't in Spanish today. It's a Wix website. And so that's got some limitations in translation. So we're actually in testing right now. It hasn't gone live yet, but we were really quickly able with AI to build with actually a guy who's doing startup here in Colorado, a chat where we gave it a link to our website. It scraped the whole website. We uploaded a few documents in addition to the website, and the chat comes up in English, but the first thing it says is, "How can I help you?" How can I help you with your behavioral health needs? They do therapy as well. And ask your question, ask me to respond in any language. Wow. So right away, the customer knows that they can get their answers in the language of their choice. And like any translation, we're testing it against Google Translate, which the team uses a lot right now. Okay. This makes that more immediate, right?
Not perfect, but a really good tool.
Exactly. It's a good starting point, and eventually it will be a tool that we'll use to translate some of the educational materials for parents as well.
That's great. I love that.
So
that's a good solution for them.
Yeah. And just chat, I think, has so much potential right now as a small business. If you can train your own chat, if you onboard a lot of new customer service folks, if you onboard a lot of new team members and there's a lot of training to do, but you're not big enough to have a learning management system that tracks all that, you can have a segregated part of your chat that is trained on, maybe that's that customer experience, or it's your brand standards or your employee handbook. Those things can be fed in a way that they're easily queryable. So you're not like digging around the SharePoint to try to find all that stuff, and can be a great ride along. So if you've got somebody on the phone who's not very experienced, but they're running into a challenge that your chat has already dealt with overnight because there's some new irregularity in the system, that chat can ride along with those customer service folks, and it can be suggesting a script and suggesting solutions. And some chats, even, I haven't implemented one of these yet, but some chats can do real-time call sentiment analysis as well. Oh, wow. So you know how angry the customer is that you're about to get on the phone, and you have some coaching before you pick up that call.
Yeah, that's helpful.
In order to be able to have a more successful outcome. And the studies we're seeing with that is that those tools are really improving team member retention.
Okay.
Which is huge these days, right? If you don't have to rehire and retrain staff, that's a huge savings for your company.
Yeah. So, because it also probably the chat can also de-escalate the situation a little bit over time as it learns, and de-escalate the situation, give them the information they need, give them peace of mind or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Before they actually talk to a real person. And now it's a much better experience for both, right?
Right. And CallMiner is a Colorado company that's doing great work in that space.
Cool.
They have really built out their capabilities quickly with AI.
That's cool. Is there another example that you wanted to share, maybe that you guys have done?
Yeah,
that was cool?
Sure. So I was talking about specialty construction. So we worked with a small field soccer field company that also does pickleball and things like that. They have YMCAs and JCCs as a lot of their customers and members. And so they had really been business to consumer facing in all of their marketing, but they recognized they'd kind of found this niche. They'd been selling toward it, but they really hadn't shifted their marketing yet. And so we went in and did really fast data analytics for them. That's one thing AI has allowed us without having a full-time data scientist, the kind of data analytics and initial predictive model building for what that customer behavior looks like, what their journey looks like, just using their HubSpot data. We were able to dump that and really within probably about 10 hours of analysis have an initial predictive model where we could see the behaviors of the customers who are most likely to move forward and what that journey looked like. So we can now guide future customers like them into that journey. That also helped us find more people using Data Axle data and using LinkedIn Sales Navigator and some of the tools like Apollo and Clearbit that go along with that, that have AI really identifying that audience and starting to really shift all of our messaging toward them.
Wow.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, that was pretty great. It resulted in 20% increase in their conversion in like the first 60 days and that was the first 60 days from starting the analysis. Yeah. And their social, they didn't have a lot of social engagement going on before we started. There'd been kind of a pause in their social. So we saw their social engagement with that audience go up 500% as soon as we started doing targeted messaging. So
that's great.
Yeah, big impact.
That's impressive. So would you say that your services pay for themselves?
I mean, I want our customers to say that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk how do you price your services?
Yeah, great question. So for the fractional CMO services, we recognize doing that upfront solid assessment takes time to show results. And so we start with a 4-month commitment. That's a monthly retainer. We have a variety of packages for that based on how deep do you want to go with the AI implementation. If you really want a lot of hands-on on-site with the team, you're going to spend a little bit more. But those packages start at $3,500 a month. And so you get a dedicated person for at least 20 hours a month. It's always more at the beginning for that initial analysis. Sure. And then we really help you build out your team. So that's an ongoing retainer. And that for some people is kind of a new business model. I came from as a VP of sales and marketing and chief brand and revenue officer. When I came into organizations, I was seeing all this outsourced, really expensive service with agencies. And I still continued to have targeted specialty agency partners, but there's so much benefit to a company to bring that skill set and the technology in-house. And so I really believe in scaling on the inside. So that's really why we decided to go fractional instead of the agency direction. And then for AI implementation services, I mean, some of that starts as low as $250 because we'll go in and just do an introductory workshop. We do half-day hands-on workshops that are building your AI implementation strategy plan, really building the roadmap for that, starting to look at the highest payoff use cases with your team. But we also just do basic education on AI and the future of work and getting hands-on for the very first time. What does using AI in your small business look like? So we do a lot of public speaking on that kind of thing.
That's great. How do you because there's a lot of older business owners who have been kind of doing this the same way over and over again and are hesitant to make any sort of changes. I mean, had a guy on the podcast running a $2 million operation off of spreadsheets.
Yep. It is amazing to me. I work with these companies that make $3 to $5 million and it's
You're
incredible
like, let
to
me
me.
see your CRM. They're like, you mean Excel? You're like,
But I mean, how brilliant are those people that
yeah,
they've been
right?
able to do that with
But it's just so much busy work, right?
It is. I mean, I think, and so there are a couple of tools we use at first for people who are receptive to get started. We didn't do this in our very first engagements and realized a time study was important. And I'm a believer, like, since I was in my 20s, I've been using time studies when work feels out of control. And I found great ways to use those tools with my teams in ways that really drive ahas.
Yeah. And
So
that's just tracking your time.
yeah, tracking what your tasks
you're
take.
doing.
And there are some AI driven tools like Clockify you can use for that if you want to take time to integrate those. We typically just do a 2-week study at the front end. So we give companies the choice. Do you want to do it on an old fashioned Google Sheet? So it's easy for your teams to track, but it's a little bit manual, or do you want to install something? So that's part of how we help them sort of arrive at some.
You could do both and show them the difference.
That's true. That's true.
This actually took 5 hours to do, and this took 2 minutes.
Because so looking at that, I think, is a great step for any organization. But I think the other thing is helping organizations sort of move toward the things that feel less risky. So a lot of organizations feel frozen because it's going to be a big tech investment. They have lack of visibility. They're not sure about their data security. So starting on the marketing side can really make sense. If we're just automating and using AI on things that are already public facing, that are not giving away your competitive advantage or your secret sauce, that can sometimes be a great pilot or case study in an organization to help everybody see, like, wow, this really makes a difference. And here are the things we need to think through before we get into.
Would you just test it in like one department? Or with a couple of employees?
I mean, across the country, like in my peer groups, I am seeing a lot of AI adoption is starting in marketing and sales teams because they do so much repetitive work.
Yeah, and they also maybe tend to be a little more innovative.
Right.
Yeah,
a little more risk taking. Yeah. But what I really recommend.
Marketing is moving so fast, right? It's that that technology and that stuff is moving so fast. You got to keep up with it. So you have to be kind of, if you're still in marketing, you got to be an innovative mind already.
Yeah, that's true. What I recommend for entire organizations, though, is building an AI council. And that is leaders from all levels of the organization, including frontline staff. When I say leaders, people who have a voice and have influence, and developing an AI use policy. None of that's sexy, but you do need to have sort of some values-based decisions around what data is going to go public, what isn't. And then I do a lot of training with teams on almost every tool today has a security layer. So if you're building your own, you're going to have that security layer on top of your Amazon or your Google or your Microsoft product where you decide what goes in and out. But Salesforce has that. A lot of like the chat tools that I'm recommending to clients have that. So those are the kinds of questions we teach leaders to ask.
Okay. That's good. How do you guys keep up with all of the new AI tools that are coming out? I feel like every week there's something new, crazy that, I forgot the name of the one that, we just saw a service that we use. It just came out with AI voiceover. It's just built into the website.
Right.
I was like, is this going to cost extra? I was like, nope, just built in. And that's something that we use is we hire voice actors to do voiceovers for projects. And we're like looking at like, this is effectively free now because we're already paying for this service and we could use it. And we tested it out and I was like, it's pretty good actually, And so it's like, but how do you keep up with all the different things? Because you need to know about all the solutions for your clients.
Yeah,
right?
You're actually reminding me of podcasts, and you're reminding me of a podcast I listened to yesterday where now you can hire like Burt Reynolds' voice or Marilyn Monroe's. A bunch of estates have licensed voices that they can use. So I did this post-grad, which, every time I learned something in class, I felt like it was immediately outdated because the next day a new release came out.
Like, I got a degree in AI. You're like, well, it's, not useless now, but it's like a lot of the things that you learned then are
the foundation principles are the same. Yeah. How they're being applied in applications every day are different. So there are 3 or 4 podcasts I listen to every single week. And that's a lot of my workout time and driving time. I was listening to something on the way over. I also am part of a number of Slack groups. So the Marketing AI Institute is a fabulous fabulous organization. I'm part of a fractionals group that is always sharing new AI tools. And I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I've got a client today. We're going to be talking about ClickUp and Zapier. And
So you're saying video works is what you're saying.
Yes, I am saying video works.
Wow. Okay. Incredible.
For education and training as well as promotion, for sure. And the other thing, and we pilot a lot. So, 3 weeks ago, I piloted time tracking tools for the week to decide which one we like the best. There's also a cool website that if you really want to take time, it's kind of overwhelming, called There's an AI for That.
Okay.
And so when I was looking for tools for my autism clients, what are the coaching tools that families can use to have ABA therapy as a unique kind of therapy, applied behavioral. I forgot what the other A stands for. Anyway, you can find really unique tools like that. Some of those are chat GPTs, so they're not a separate software subscription. A lot of them have a freemium version. Almost all of them you need to go test and find out if it's good for you. And I think we're at this place of all this divergence. There are so many tools being developed right now, and I think we'll see that through 2025.
Pretty overwhelming.
And then we'll start to see this convergence where there's acquisition, things don't make it through their Series B funding, they don't get enough market share, they don't prove their value. And I mean, we're seeing some of that consolidation
15 to 20 really good ones.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're going to end up, it's like the Apple phone. Do you remember when the Apple phone, you got a separate flashlight app, you got a separate Stargazer app, you got a separate Shazam app, and now all that stuff's just part of the phone. Yeah. That's where we'll get to.
Cool. I hope so. That'd be great. What are you guys hoping to do more of over the next year or two? What do you guys enjoy doing? What do you want to be doing more of?
I think we want to see the impact for companies. So more of really helping them quickly identify what.
Are you staying with companies long enough to see the results that you hope to?
The results happen really fast. They do. I mean, we are definitely seeing, if we have adoption, we're seeing results in the first 60 days with some of those little things that we implement.
Some of the bigger things, though, could take a lot longer. Are you
They
able
could.
to go
And some of the size companies
reach back out to them and say, hey, how's this working out for you?
Yeah. And some of the companies that we've worked with, they're at a size stage and a budget stage where the easy win stuff is what they've been able to implement right now. Now they're allowing that to work, and we'll come back maybe in 3 to 6 months and do some of that more complex stuff for them, because they still need to see the proof in the pudding to make the investment.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, good for you guys. All right, let's wrap this up. Where can people find you if they want to learn more, they want to reach out to you, they're interested in your services? Where should they hit you up at?
Yeah, we do a lot of virtual events and education. So a few of those you can find on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is pretty new. RevOpp with 2 Ps .ai is our website. So we have a newsletter that you can join. We also have a LinkedIn newsletter that is AI marketing for small and mid-sized businesses and B2B marketing. So that's a great place to join as well, right on our LinkedIn page for RevOppAI.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and look forward to following along.
Thanks. It's been fun, Matt.
Yeah, thanks.